Hello and welcome to the May 12th San Francisco Public Relations Roundtable first ever virtual scholarship event. I am Molly Walker. I'm the 2020 Roundtable Chair, and we're very pleased you're joining us today from your offices and homes, as we know, around the Bay Area and more broadly. We are about 73 people, something like that, and we're thrilled to have you all here. No one needs to tell you we're living in strange times. We hope you and the people in your life are all doing well and that your business is manageable or becoming so. While this crisis has been sobering and disturbing, there have been many bright moments, as we all know. And we hope our webinar today will be one of those bright moments, for it has given us a reason to go virtual and bring this event to you, our members and guests and students. At Roundtable events, we try to offer a door prize for attendees. And so even though our meeting today is virtual and we have no actual door for the prize, we will not dispense with that tradition. At the end of our webinar today, I will announce our winner who will receive a $50 Amazon gift certificate. You're encouraged to post your reactions to social media during and following our program. Note the Roundtable handle is at SFPR Roundtable, or hashtag SFPRRT. We have a big program today, so let's get started. I'd now like to introduce to you today's moderator, my fellow board member and scholarship program chair, Kathleen Brennan. Kathleen.
Thank you, Molly. Our program today includes a conversation between KQED Newsroom host Priya Clemens and PR pro Sarah Siegel. Following the interview, there will be an opportunity for everyone to ask questions. Just use the chat box on Zoom. And please continue to keep your audio muted. When the interview portion of our program is over, we will share news about the PR Roundtable Scholarship Program. You'll get to meet our 5 2020 scholarship winners and their advisors. So plan to stay with us following the conversation, Priya. You won't want to miss it. And now on to the show. As I noted, our speaker, Priya Clemens, will be joined today by PR Roundtable board member and membership chair, Sarah Siegel. Sarah is the founder of Siegel Communications, a Bay Area-based public relations agency that helps brands tell their most meaningful stories. Please meet my colleague, Sarah Siegel, who will introduce today's guest. Sarah?
Thank you, Kathleen, and hello, everyone. I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Priya Clemens, the new host of the well-known weekly San Francisco news program, KQED Newsroom. Priya joins us today with not only a rich and broad background in broadcast journalism, but also several years working on the dark side in public relations. Her appointment as newsroom host was announced this past January, and she made her debut on February the 28th. Priya brings to the job more than 15 years of television news experience, working for a variety of national, local outlets, including CBS News, NBC News, and KTVU. But her perspective is unique in that she's worked on both sides of the communications industry, most recently as the spokesperson for the Golden Gate Bridge District, where she managed public affairs for both the Golden Gate Bridge and the Golden Gate Transit and Ferries. Priya's career has had her crisscrossing the nation to cover some of the most important stories of the early part of the millennium. She's covered pivotal moments such as the financial meltdown in 2008, interviewed such notable figures as Warren Buffett, Kobe Bryant, and Donald Trump. We'll, of course, ask her a little bit about that later. She's also worked as a general assignment reporter for KTVU here, KOIN in Portland, stations in Birmingham, Alabama, Santa Barbara, and the OC. So she's definitely been around the country. Today, Priya will share the ins and outs of her career and why she decided to return to the news desk, talk about what it's like to work in the media going through this crisis, and share her views on the state of serious journalism in the Bay Area more broadly. Please do add your questions to the chat channel, and we will try to get to as many as we can. Welcome, Priya.
Sarah, thank you so much. But, you know, it makes me sound like I can't hold down a job.
That's the way television works. You get your couple-year contracts. I think that I'm used to that. My background, just for people to give you context, is that I worked in broadcast as well. Not as high level as Priya, but it is an indulgence for me to be able to interview you, as I made the same shift from TV to PR, but unlike you, I did not return to journalism. So I'm personally very fascinated to learn more about your experiences and how you've set out to kind of navigate the current landscape. So thanks for joining us. Let's, I guess, start with the biggest question is, can you speak a little bit about what drew you to journalism in the first place? What led you to PR and kind of back to television?
Well, the journalism story started for me when I was young. I was on my elementary school newspaper. I was the editor-in-chief in 5th grade. I started a newspaper for our middle school. I've always sort of had this sense that knowledge is our most precious resource and have wanted to share that. And as I got older, that then translated into a career in journalism as a reporter. So I started in Santa Barbara. It was a baby TV station that had just started up. I was the news producer there and got to hire the staff and bring everyone in and learn the ropes as we went. And then I went to grad school at USC. And if anyone out there is contemplating grad school, I'll say it can be absolutely fantastic for the networking opportunities. And that's what I found. I went to NBC in New York following grad school in a program that NBC News had called the News Associates Program. And I worked for 3 months at Dateline, 3 months with Tom Brokaw, 3 months with Brian Williams, and 3 months in Birmingham, Alabama as a local reporter. So I got a little bit of taste of everything. Stuck around with NBC News for another few years and worked as a campaign embed where I covered Dick Gephardt's bid for the presidential nomination, the Democratic nomination, and then Dick Cheney's campaign for re-election. So that was a really fascinating time in my life. I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time. When I was covering Dick Gephardt, we were on these little flights bumping out to Iowa. They would give us chocolate chip cookies on the plane. And then when I switched to Dick Cheney after Gephardt blew up, unfortunately, he just didn't make it past Iowa that year. This was 2004. Then it was suddenly all Air Force Two and deep background sessions with Dick Cheney on the flight as we were going back to DC on a Friday. So from that time, what had kind of happened was the way that I'd made my way up through the network was that I'd gone in as an associate producer learning, and then I really was working as a junior reporter / producer in the campaign world. And I'd never really had the boots on the ground general reporter experience that I felt I needed. And I had an opportunity to do that with NBC in DC, but decided instead to come out to San Francisco, which I am so glad that I did. San Francisco, I've lived a lot of places in my life. I grew up in Europe, I've lived all over the States. San Francisco feels like the home of my heart. It's where I met my husband, and it's definitely where we feel our home is and our lives are. So I came and did 3 years at KTVU, and then went back to CBS, went back nationally and worked at CBS in New York for 2 years, which had been my goal. I'd wanted to be a network correspondent. I became a network correspondent and anchor. I anchored Saturday morning shows, occasionally filled in on the evening news desk, Katie Couric's seat at the time. And then I got married and came back to the Bay Area. And my husband and I just didn't want to do a long distance relationship, at least not that far once we were married. And we decided we'd come back. And I got pregnant almost right away, and then got pregnant again almost right away. And I say all of this because at the time I was still freelancing and working for CBS Network News and KTVU locally. Mm-hmm. And the amount of travel that you have to do as a national correspondent is intense and immense and nonstop, and you never know when it's going to happen. And I did it for a while and finally just couldn't keep doing it. So when this job came up at the Golden Gate Bridge, I called up Mary Curry, who you all know, who was in that job for many years. And I then interviewed for the job. And, you know, as the wheels of government move so quickly, I was finally hired for the position 8 months later. You know, I was there for 5 years, and I joke often that I wanted to be there for 23, because then I would beat Mary's record by 1 year. She was there for 22, and I would be there for the centennial. But, you know, my husband, who I've mentioned and is on this call, he's the co-founder of Lighthouse Public Affairs, and he works with one of your board members, Paul Rose. Paul, I think that Alex just does whatever you tell him. he happened to be having lunch with Scott Schaefer, who's the political reporter for KQED. He mentioned that they were looking for a host for Newsroom since Belva Davis had left, and then Thuy Vu was in it for 6 years, and she had left. And would I be interested? And I thought, no. I mean, it was mentioned, and I thought, my news days have come and gone. This is just not where I am anymore. And I just found myself drawn to that job description over and over again. And I made the switch, and I'm incredibly happy that I did. KQED is a nonprofit organization, which is the first time I've worked for in public TV like this. But their mission and their community are incredible. And they have a mission to inform, involve, and inspire. And I find that to be something that I can take and use every day. As a guiding star as I do my work. So that's the long story of how I returned.
What was it about the job opening that was the most appealing to you in terms of what you would be able to do specifically, the kind of coverage you would be able to do?
Yeah, I think that this job is really, it's really special, and it's certainly unique in this area. The show is 30 minutes long, and generally there are segments that are about 10 minutes long each. So about 3 segments per show. That's rare. It's rare to have that sort of time on TV these days. It's rare that we're not looking at what the news is of the moment or of the day, but we're really looking at the issues of the week. And we're looking at the topics that matter most. And we're working to get on newsmakers who can shed some depth and light to what we're doing and why as a society. So this particular job is a gift, and I couldn't walk away from it.
Tell me a little bit. I think it would be interesting for us to learn a little bit more, kind of a day in the life of a correspondent, and the things that you had to do and were responsible for, because it will give us perspective on, what we're pitching when we're pitching you is like what you're in the midst of. So we have a better understanding of kind of the pace of your day and how you really filter out and make decisions on what you're covering.
So that's very different depending on who I'm working for at any given time, right? So when I was a local reporter for Channel 2, I started on the morning shift. I would be at the station at 3:30 in the morning. 4 o'clock was the later shift. And I would work through the morning shows. So we would do multiple live shots. I think it was 5, 6, 7, 8 at Channel 2. And then we had a noon newscast. For that sort of show, we were really looking for topical, what is happening at this moment. They weren't bigger issue stuff most of the time, unless there was breaking news associated with it that day. And so that really had to have a very strong news peg of the day. When I worked as a national correspondent, depending on the show that I was working for, I had different opportunities to place different kinds of stories. So I could place a story on weekend news that was about nuns that were traveling with a circus. And I could also do stories on the Wall Street meltdown from the New York Stock Exchange floor for the morning news. So it really sort of varied there. I'd say KQED is awesome because you have all of those opportunities. You have opportunities to pitch daily news stories and have those get on, have topical coverage, but there's also programs not only like KQED Newsroom, but obviously Forum as well, the California Report, where they do some longer form storytelling and really get to dig into the issues. So I don't know that there's not a formula. I wish there was. And it really is about figuring out where you want your story to go. And, just tailoring your approach for each of those shows, which is a lot of work.
Do you find that there's any general misconceptions that PR folks have about journalists? I was always amazed by how, at least when I was a local reporter, people always thought it was a lot more glamorous than it was. But I would.
What you mean? You mean putting on your, makeup in the live truck in the dark
at 70 miles per hour?
Not glamorous. I'm very talented. I have unusual skills.
Mascara
that
is
one of them. That's right. That's right. I mean, I think there's probably still some of that. I would love for any of you to write in with thoughts on that. about what are your conceptions of what a journalist is. Since I was a journalist first, and for most of my life, I didn't have as many of those misconceptions. But I'd say, you know, it's interesting. People can think that journalists are always working on a tight deadline. They don't have time for anything. Well, it's sort of true, but then sometimes you do have time for a story that can take a little longer. You know, assuming that a journalist knows the basic facts about your story or about your industry is a mistake. It seems, you know, and I got into this when I was in transportation, that it would seem to me like it just made sense that everybody knew the Golden Gate Bridge District had 3 divisions, and we did bridge, bus, and ferry, and, you know, kind of our revenue generally came from our tolls. People don't know that. They don't know the basics because they are busy doing so many different stories. Unless you have a reporter like Dan Brecky at KQED, who is really a transportation focused person, you're not going to get that level of knowledge from your reporters. But if you can give them that basic, it's a real opportunity, right? You can give them that basic piece of knowledge, and you can also formulate how they can see the story through a lens that you're interested in sharing.
So it's often you're having to become an expert on a subject in a matter of, you know, 4 hours before you go live and have to explain it.
I think that's, you know, one of the things I love about journalism actually is they say you're a mile wide and an inch deep. And, you know, when I went into transportation, I got a lot deeper in one subject. And I do love the fact that I get to pick and pull little pieces of information from different topics and issues of the day every week.
You do well on Jeopardy. So I would love to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about what it's like covering news in today's day and age, specifically with, you know, how you've changed how you produce your show. I know you've you've given us a couple of photographs to share that I would love to have you talk through. I can share my screen with you if I am that skilled. So here we go. So I'm sharing a photograph here. You want to explain this?
Yes, the masked bandits. So this is the KQED Newsroom set right now. KQED is in the midst of this amazing renovation. And so the headquarters, which are in San Francisco, are not being occupied right now by any KQED staff. So the studio also is not available. This is a rented space on Broadway in San Francisco that we're using temporarily. And these are 2 of the camera operators. We are on a much more limited staff than we typically would be. I think our production staff is cut by about half. Everybody has to wear masks other than me, and everybody stays 6 feet apart. It's made it tricky in some ways. I mean, for example, the producer is now no longer in the control room. So we can't he can't see what's happening on the screens at the time, and he can't talk to the technical director quickly. He has to talk to me in a different way than he might have before. So it's working. I'm thankful for it, but it is definitely a little bit of a trying time. And I will say I kind of miss, you know, having help with hair and makeup. That part was really, really beneficial. You know, the other thing though it's allowed us to do is we didn't really do that many Skype interviews before, especially with people locally. We would take people who would come into the studio. And this has really opened up some opportunities to talk with people who might not have the time otherwise to come into the studio. And so I think that there's some really great practices out of that I hope that we can continue as time goes on.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think some of those practices will, you know, stay because in long term, specifically the Skype videos? Do you hope that kind of broadens your ability to talk to folks who may not be locally available?
Yeah, absolutely. It broadens that. It also, you know, as we're going through this time of months and months of uncertainty of when we're going to be allowed out in public, what that's going to look like, what social distancing is, when we're going to have, if something comes up again and we all must shelter in place again, as we're going through all of these waves, I think technology is allowing us to continue these important conversations and dialogues.
Yeah, and as far as national news goes, We had started, I mean, it was not as frequent as it is now, where I could pitch a story and offer up somebody via Skype interview. More local stations were doing it than the national, at least from my perspective. Do you think that's going to stay, and that people are just kind of getting used to that level of quality of a tele video conversation?
Well, people have been getting used to that for some time, right? I mean, we've been getting used to that with cell phone videos and content that has been appearing for years now that wasn't shot with really high definition cameras. And I think, obviously there's this convergence of the technology getting better, simpler to use, and the communication, the transmission of it becoming so much more robust. So I don't see any way that we move back from this. I think that there are a lot of benefits to having someone in studio. I'm looking forward to welcoming guests into the studio once again. But this is an added benefit that we can and must use going forward.
And you talked a little bit about being a correspondent, having to kind of crisscross the country and travel at the drop of a hat. This could possibly change that experience. But I assume that there's a level of being there to tell the story that is always beneficial.
And, reporters are finding ways to get out in the community and still do it safely. So, KQED reporters have their microphones on a long stick and can go out there and still interview people while maintaining social distance. I think reporters, healthcare workers, there are these, we're considered essential employees and essential workers. So we're able to continue doing the work. And as long as the need for good, clear journalistic information is still there, the desire is still there, there will be journalists who are willing to take on those risks and do that job.
Talk to me a little bit about your program and kind of where you see it going. It has a specific format right now, but there are parts of it that you would like to, do you have a vision, I guess, for where you want to take it? Obviously it's kind of new, you're just there, but like what your instinct is. What does the Bay Area need in terms of that space?
Yeah, I do. And you're going to see some of those things experimented with over the next several months. The program has had a format which has been effective and has worked well. But yeah, I'm a new player here, and I have my own ideas and vision that I'm bringing to the show. We certainly want to continue to talk with newsmakers, to talk with people who make decisions about our lives every day or who have some insight on that. I also think we will continue looking at features and that CBS Sunday morning sort of element that we want to bring to it. And I'm also interested in looking into a news recap and kind of summarizing what has happened through the week in a crisp and clear way, so that those of us who don't have a chance to look at every piece of news along the way have an opportunity to gather all that knowledge.
Skim for broadcast, I love it. Let's talk a little bit about like how PR folks approach journalists, and I don't want to say the most common mistakes, but are there best practices, or are there things that you've experienced where there was just a miscommunication in terms of how you're receiving pitches and information from PR people?
It's interesting. I would say that people, let me go back to that in a couple different ways. I did take a couple notes here about PR, and I just want to get to that. So let me tell you about my best practices that I learned that I put into place while I was at the Golden Gate Bridge, and that I think came from my experience as a reporter. So one, obviously, line it up. Prep your stakeholders, not just your spokespeople, but prep your stakeholders, make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of your message. Get your B-roll opportunities and your fact sheets done. Be selective. Don't make every story the big story. Don't pitch every story the same way. You're going to pitch one story through an intriguing tweet that's of a picture that's going to catch somebody's attention, and they'll call you up. You're going to pitch another with a phone call directly to a reporter. You're going to pitch another with a major press conference. So just tailor it. And I think that also keeps your distribution platforms, your reporters, from getting too bored, right? Like, oh yeah, I've seen this format, I know what this is. And people can feel like they're discovering something. I think reporters often want to feel like they're discovering something that isn't just out there for the whole world to see. And so I often found my best success in cultivating a few sources The Marin Independent Journal was one, the Press Democrat sometimes, San Francisco Chronicle, and specific reporters who I knew would who I could share a story. They would write the story, and I knew it would get pickup. So I knew I could have done it more broadly, right? I could have shared a press release, and a few more entities might have gotten it, but then people don't feel like they're discovering something that's in that one specific source. Also, it gives you an opportunity to control the facts of the story when you have it going to one source at the beginning. So I found that to be very effective for me. And if you can place things where you know others will look for ideas for content, that's helpful. It's interesting because there's this like catch-22 as a reporter. If it's been published before, you know, it has a little less appeal. But if it hasn't been published before, then does it really have merit? So you kind of want to find a sweet spot there where you've got something to buck it up, a little something on the internet that's not just a press release, but that doesn't give the whole story away and make it feel like it's been overdone. The last thing I'd say is, you know, try to give more than you're asked for. So provide more resources, more facts, more information, especially that foundational sort of information than the reporter may even know to ask. And also give other sources, not just sources who are going to supplement your point of view, but even sources who don't. Help your reporter get the whole story. They're going to try to figure it out some other way. And, you know, you might as well be the person who says like, hey, you know, I know Tom down the street has a very different point of view. You may want to talk to this person for your story. It's going to make you more credible. And frankly, that should come out through good journalism anyway.
That's great advice. So I mentioned that you interviewed a lot of interesting people throughout your career, one of which was Donald Trump. I'm sure that I'm not the only one here that would be curious to hear about that experience. You know, what is he like in real life?
So I interviewed Trump as part of a press gaggle when I was in New York in 2008. It was about his beauty pageant. I, you know, frankly, don't even remember the details of the story right now, just another kind of Trump drama. And, you know, it's not surprising that he is what you sort of see. Like, I don't know, honestly, that I could tell you much more because Trump is so himself on TV every day that he is that way in person. He came down the gold escalators. He stood there puffed up. He, you know, made his statements. And then I went back over to my camera and was talking with my camera operator and getting my notes written to do my live shot. And I feel a tap, tap, tap on my shoulder. The camera person's eyes look up and turn around. There's Donald Trump standing there. Hi, Mr. Trump. And he says, I just want you to know, I think you're a very beautiful woman. And like coming on the heels of this beauty pageant drama and problems, I'm like, oh, it's just so ick. It's that ick factor, right? Yeah. So it's just, you know, he is who he is that you see on the screen. And you know, there's not much more to add to it at this point.
Does that make you, I would love to kind of, obviously he did that because you're a woman. We've seen him, I've seen coverage of criticizing him for asking, responding to reporters about China because they look like they're from Asian descent. I would just love to look your perspective on kind of being, your experience working in broadcast and news as a woman, or, you know, as a woman, you know, in this day and age, I guess.
Well, you know, I think it's certainly changed. I think it's changed in the last 15 years that I've been on. And I think truly, you know, the time that he was sort of growing up, if you will, if that's kind of how that's happened, it was a time when that was very much seen as a compliment. You go tell a woman that she's beautiful, she's supposed to think that's a compliment. That's a great thing that you're doing. Yeah. And I think, you know, the job, one of the great things I've loved about KQED is that I feel like it's a place that cuts through some of that BS. I feel like they're really focused on issues and content and less about the looks. And that was one of the hardest things I think through my career. I have been told that I carry too much weight. I have been told that I need to smile more, that I'm easier to take if I smile. I've been told that my breasts are too large. I've been told a lot of stuff. Wow. And it is a very, I feel like, and this is not completely true, but I feel like at one point, or earlier on in my career, there was a time when women were judged almost more for their looks and their presentation skills than their talents. I mean, I have two postgraduate degrees. I have or a college and a master's degree. I've traveled a lot of places. I've covered a lot of stories. I know a lot. And yet that wasn't the focus for a long time, I feel, of what I was actually being judged on by my superiors. That has changed, and I'm so thankful that has changed. But I don't think it's changed completely, right? So like, hey, it's COVID time right now, and the hair salons are all closed. So I'm getting gray hair in here, right? What do I do with that? Do I say, okay, I'm good to go gray, that's cool? Or do I say, no, I gotta cover that up and keep that covered up? I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting time. It's interesting perspective to think about as I get older. And it's something that women have been facing for decades. Yeah. And longer. Do you allow yourself to show aging as a woman, or is that supposed to be held back? It's a conversation that many of us have had time and again. I just find myself confronting it now.
Let me know when you find the answer, because that would be great. Talk a little bit about, like what you're working on this week, how you make decisions on what you're going to cover this week, and that process.
Mm-hmm. So a few things we're working on. One, the governor's budget is going to be coming out on Thursday, his revised budget. So we're certainly going to be talking about that on KQED Newsroom. We're discussing who we want to have come in as a guest on that, if we're going to bring in some of our really knowledgeable KQED reporters, Marisa Lagos, Scott Schaefer on the politics side, if we want to bring in potentially a state senator. So we're going to be looking at politics. We're also kind of deciding if we want to look at transportation this week and some of the major changes that are coming up in the coming months, due to budget shortfalls and just the retraction of the public transit ridership. Or, we've also been looking at the future of work, and I'm really fascinated by the studies that have come out showing how the reality of work from home is so strongly gendered. There was this great stat in the New York Times recently that said 45% of men think they are helping evenly or equally with schoolwork, right? And 3% of women agree. and so I think, looking at that, that's one of the cool things we can do on newsrooms. We can do like, here's the news of the day and talk about the budget. We can also look at sociological trends. And I was an anthropology major undergrad, so that's always interesting to me. And then we're looking at a feature. So we haven't booked our feature this week. If anybody has any ideas out there, I'm looking for either a feature about the future, or just an interesting, compelling story about something that's more in the human interest realm. Last week we did an interview with the CAMFest festival director. That's the Center for Asian American Media. And they got in because they had a good pitch. They sent a pitch, but it was tailored. And it was tailored specifically to the producer. They watched the show the week before. They talked specifically about a segment an interview that I had done, talked about what they could bring to the table, and made it very clear. And that pitch at least rose to the level of making it out of the producer's inbox and came to our discussion on Tuesday morning about what we wanted to cover.
Yeah, how do you, what's the best way to submit story ideas and pitches to KQED Newsroom?
So send them to me, would be great. pclemens@kqed.org.
And what's the best way? Do you prefer short and sweet, or really lengthy and detailed? Do you want images? Like what kind of content do you like is good for you for that first communication?
Okay, so I'm not great with long. I think I have a short attention span, honed in by years of being a day of air news reporter. I just want to know, I want an actual email from an actual person. I don't want a press release. I just want someone to say in 5 sentences, here is the story. Here's what why I think it should be on your show. Are you interested? I can send you more. Or even like, if you want more, click here. There's more information online on my website at this place. That gives me something more. But
And
I don't want to wade through a lot of information.
any no-nos on subject lines that drive you nuts?
I don't like all caps subject lines. I don't like anything that yells at me. I generally like the ones that say, "Hi, Priya." And it gets me a little bit more interested in reading it than if it's just the topic of whatever you're pitching.
Okay. I think that we're probably, we got a lot of questions coming in, so I want to give ample time to that. I know we're going to start a couple minutes before we were supposed to start on questions, but
Great. Let me get the lights going here.
There are a lot going on, so. All right, we already talked about that. What do you think, this is from Deborah, who asks, what will it take to balance out the coverage beyond the coronavirus? Obviously, local national focus is focused on it, and you look at the evening news, and I want to say 90% of the coverage is about coronavirus. When do you think that, what will it take to kind of go back to a normal level of coverage? It's a hard question.
Time. Right? It's news follows the events. So as long as the coronavirus is a big deal, it will continue to dominate news coverage. And you are seeing some signs of it, for the first couple of weeks, all it was coronavirus coverage. Sure. Now, okay, 90, 80%, you're seeing a few other stories start to trickle through. But even those are generally seen through the lens of the coronavirus and what we're dealing with day to day. It is such a huge, impactful event and crisis that we are dealing with, that there is no way that is changing anytime soon.
Is there a worry at all or discussion in the newsroom about viewers getting tired of hearing about the coronavirus and wanting to make sure that you're not driving people eyeballs away because you're talking about it too much?
Yeah, I think, I've seen that there have been some good news sites that have done really well because people are looking for something that is alternate, that is not just in that world. We try to get at that through our feature segment at the end of the show and look at something from a brighter point of view. And I think that it's certainly a concern, but at the same time, it does make it feel like there's absolutely nothing going on in the world except for coronavirus. But I think for many people, that's what the world is like right now, right? We're sheltering in place. This is still impacting us day to day. And it's going to just take some time. And we don't know what that's like. We don't know when we're coming out of this exactly. We don't know if there's going to be another wave or recession, coming in the fall as this rebounds, or even beyond that. So I think until there's a vaccine, I think we can see a lot of this coverage happening for a long time.
The next question comes from Lisa. She says, how will you be handling election coverage? Can you balance coverage of one candidate who gets daily visibility and another who's always presented as hiding in his basement?
Well, I think Donald Trump's presidency has been, even his candidacy was highlighted on media channels, on news channels in the run-up to his election. And then he continues to use that platform daily. It is, now that he's president, how do you say, okay, we're just not going to cover that? Well, it depends on who you are. KQED has made the decision that we are not going to cover his daily press briefings live. We don't take those live anymore. So there are choices that people can make editorially. But in terms of the, major news channels in this country, I think that those are still, he still brings eyeballs, right? He still sells. And I can't say that I have advice for Joe Biden right now about getting out of his basement. But I think that there are people who are doing all kinds of, it's interesting. On the other hand, there are people who are doing all kinds of interesting things through Instagram Live or, and finding new ways to connect that politically he needs to find some way to do.
Yeah, I didn't realize, I think I knew that you weren't taking the press briefings live. I know that, I think it was an Oregon station that was the first to announce that. What is that? How did you come to that decision?
You know, it's incumbent upon us to present information that's as truthful as possible. And unfortunately, often in those press briefings, things that are said are not as truthful as possible. And so it's important for us to have the time to look at it, to vet the comments, and to be able to return to the audience with, here's what was said, but here's some context around that, and here's what it means.
All right, we have next question is from Jackie, who wants to talk about how you cross-promote your news that you share on your broadcast. Do you share certain tidbits for social media or take a deeper dive in issues on your podcast? Like, how do you distribute that information? Is it equal across platforms, or do you save certain elements for certain verticals?
Yeah, it depends. If there's something that makes news in Newsroom, then we'll work on a piece for it for radio. For example, I had a woman on last week who was talking about how she's a business owner and she's gotten a PPP loan, but she has not been able to hire back all her employees because some of them are making more money on unemployment and the $600 per week. And also people are scared to come back to work and potentially get the coronavirus. So that was enough of a news tidbit that we're looking at making that into a radio spot. It depends on what radio is interested in, and then we do also share some of it on social. I think that is an area of opportunity and an area of growth for us.
When you have people on the show, what are your best interviewees? Like, what, is it the interviewee that's been, really media trained to, stay on message, or would you rather have somebody that was more of an Elon Musk loose cannon who'll say whatever? Like, how should we prepare?
Yeah, it's rare that we're getting the Elon Musk type. I mean, the real, creative genius who's just wild and out there and he's going to say whatever they want. I think that most of our guests would benefit from doing some media training. I think sometimes they're experienced politicians. We had David Chu on and James Gallagher, Republican Assemblyman, just last week. But often they are people who are not super media savvy. And I wish I could just call you all up and say, like, hey, anybody want to give someone some free advice to talk with them before they come on the show? Because I think they could just use help honing their message. It is easier if someone has had some media training, if someone knows what the point of the interview is and how they're going to say it, and say it in a meaningful way.
Understood. Here's a question from Mitchell. We don't know when the next big earthquake will hit. These are tough times. How do you, I lost part of the question. I think that was part of it. Like, how do you, I'm going to skip that one because I'm not really sure I understand it. What are your tips to balance a 2-career household, family and other obligations while finding ways to stay relevant? Oh, I like that question. Thank you, Candace.
Oh, Candace. Okay, when you say, Candace, can you clarify, when you say relevant, what do you mean finding ways to stay relevant? And I'll take the first part of it now. Balancing a 2-career household. Well, especially now, my husband and I have come up with a list of very specific sort of practices and policies for our work, because he does public affairs and I'm a journalist. So his clients, he doesn't pitch me anything. If his clients want to pitch us, they need to go to the producer. We have some a firewall that we've set into place and that we went over with our my KQED management as well. But I don't think that's the kind of balance you're talking about in general. It's always a give and take. How else do you do it? And with the kids as well. We have 2 kids. We have an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and now they're being homeschooled. And we're all sort of doing the best we can. I think for either of us, we are really clear when we have what we need at certain times. So I'll be very specific and say, hey, I've got a meeting at noon today. Can you watch the kids from this time to this time? Or he'll say, hey, I've got to do XYZ. Can you take care of the kids for, on this point? I also feel like we have a lot of flexibility in that Alex runs his own company. I have very understanding management at KQED, especially during this time. And so we're able to make that work. But communication is the bottom line. And then just getting on the same page about what you both want. I remember hearing somewhere a long time ago, if you both think you're doing most of the work in the relationship, it's probably about equal. So do you feel like you're pulling your fair share? Do you feel like your partner is? And have you had those discussions, or do you just leave it inside and let it fester?
Do you think the news industry is going to become more, with so many people working from home and telereporting, for lack of a better way to describe it, do you think that there's going to be a benefit, I guess, for people working in journalism to have that balance and be able to have a family? And
I don't know. I mean, is it better right now? It's harder because I'm at home. It's harder because there's also the home then to take care of, and the kids to take care of, or the dog, or the whatever. And then you're kind of housebound, and you have what you have in your space. So I don't know that working from home should be seen as a benefit in a way, the way that it's been seen. I think, yes, it can certainly help to minimize commute times, but it also means that you have a split brain often when you're working from home, especially during this time when there are other things that are calling on you. If you can work from home and close your door and go into an office and spend that time really focusing, that's one thing. But I think, it's interesting, and it's generally been for women, right? This desire to have a work from home policy that benefits women. They're able to better take care of their kids and their families. But the fact that it's seen as a benefit, it's generally a women's benefit, makes me a little suspect about the rationale behind it and what we're supposed to do with that. It makes me think of those big campuses, tech campuses, where they have all of the amenities on site, right? You can work right there, and you just work a little more than you might otherwise.
Yeah. Never leave.
Yeah.
All right, and go back to the relevant question. It was more, relevant in your new role during the crisis. Like, I guess, how do you differentiate yourself and create an audience within this larger thing that's going on? How do you bring more eyeballs to tune into your show when it's being it's not going to be drowned out by the crisis, but there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, there is a lot. We offer something very different than other places do. So we offer an opportunity for newsmakers to come and really share their perspective and the why behind the what. And that's never going to change.
All right. Next question we have is from Brenda, who's on our board. She says, career-wise, what's your advice to scholarship winners on this Zoom event? Is it possible for people to transition back and forth between journalism and PR and back again? What skill sets should they cultivate, and how do they move forward and up?
I'll tell you, I never thought I was going back to news. I thought once I went to, you called it the dark side, I'll call it the bright side over at the Golden Gate Bridge. I did not think I was going back into news. I always had this sense that once you made the move into PR, that was it, you were done with journalism. And they were sort of tainted in a way. I think I was fortunate in that I was at a very transparent public agency with a great reputation. That certainly helped. I don't know as time goes forward. I know people certainly make the transition from journalism to PR. Going the other way is trickier, and I don't know others who have done it. Although some of you may know some others and can point me in that direction. The skill sets are the same. Be curious, be bold, be willing to state your mind, be willing to say when you see a problem and suggest how you're going to fix it. Come with ideas, not just with problems. The skills are very similar.
talk a little bit more about the skills. What are the, like, when I went from journalism to PR, honestly, it was probably the hardest pitch I ever gave for myself, being able to make that transition and explain to agency executives that there was a translation. What are those skills that you think that, someone going from journalism to PR and PR back to journalism, what are the skill set that are continuous throughout that kind of road?
Yeah. One, can you write? Can you put together a decent sentence? And I actually had more trouble with this on the PR side. I'm very good at writing short copy. I'm not as good at writing long, flowing business letters. So that was something that I had to work on. But can you write? Can you get to the heart of a story? Can you understand what that is? Do you have kind of that instinct for it? Because if you have the instinct, whether you're a journalist or a PR person, you're going to be able to pitch the story or sell the story in a way that makes sense to the audience, in a way that's relevant to them in their lives. So are you constantly thinking, why does this matter to anyone who's viewing this other than my client at that moment? So certainly writing, but I think it's more about insight, and that is something that's honed over time.
Here's another question from Candace. How do you find ways to stay active professionally, engaged with others, and well networked while we all stay at home in the stay-at-home environment?
Well, I'm doing it now. Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to stay engaged, to network professionally. It is, for me right now, it's coming very easily because I'm in a new role. So I am constantly meeting new people, having new discussions. I'm in an unusual circumstance right now. But, just like I'm doing this, there are, and we're all in this call right now, there are plenty of others who are doing this right now. So it's a great opportunity to be able to email someone and say, hey, that you may not know, just take a little time, talk to a reporter or whoever, and reach out to them and just say, hey, can I have 5 minutes of your time to pick your brain about X, Y, and Z, or just to introduce myself? And the fact that people are doing so many Zoom and Skype calls actually makes it easier right now to have that sort of a communication, because people are all really familiar with it. So I think you can still get that FaceTime. You just need to reach out in a way that you might not otherwise, and be brave enough, be bold enough in yourself to make that call. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think that one of the things that I've really learned over time is that I've held myself back at times because of fear. When I was at CBS News, I remember that I'd talked to Katie Couric, who was anchoring the evening news at the time. And she'd wanted me to do more evening news pieces. And I wanted to, but I wasn't quite sure where to start and what I should be doing. And she gave me the number for Rahm Emanuel and said, call him. He's going to talk you through this healthcare stuff. And I remember being so intimidated about calling Rahm Emanuel, having no idea where he was going to start or what it was about, that I never made that call. And I really kick myself for that now. I wish I'd made the call, even if it was imperfect, because I know now from being on the PR side as well, journalists call and they don't know exactly what they're looking for, or what they're exactly pitching, and or looking to report on, and it's okay. As long as I've made that human contact and had a little bit of that relationship, I'm much more open and much more willing to take the call in the future, to help them in the future and have them in mind. So really, don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about having everything together. Just even being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, can we just chat for a few minutes, and maybe face-to-face, maybe use Zoom, use Skype. It's helpful.
From our vantage point, we look at your career and your resume and we're like, okay, she's done pretty well for herself. This is great. But my question for you is, do you have any regrets about your path and what you've done? Things that you may wish you've had done differently?
I don't know that I was thinking about it in this way of building a career. And if I had, I think it just kind of happened as I was going along, and I am thankful for that. I'm ambitious. I won't say that I'm not. I am ambitious. I enjoy my work. I like the work. I'm going to continue striving on it. There's only been one time in my career that I really felt like, I zigged when I should have zagged. And that was taking a job in Oregon. And I went from the network news to local news in Oregon, and did an hour-long community show that was live every day. And it was just really wasn't a good fit. And I had wanted it to work out for personal reasons, and I should have looked at that more on a professional level. But, you know, they say hindsight's 20/20, and I think it's so true. When you're in the middle of what you're doing in your life, you don't know. You do the best you can with each step you take. You get advice, you just take the next step. And most of all, I'd encourage people to just take the next step. If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to know how to do it better the next time. Even now, I ask for feedback. I say to my producer and my executive producers, what did I do well? What did I not do well? How do we want to make things better for the next show? So never be afraid of asking for that follow-up, that feedback, and continuing to get better at your craft. Regrets are okay. Regrets are okay. Regrets are fine. Regrets are life.
The next question is from John Knox. He asks, in your career as a journalist, what was one of the best pitches you received, and what was the worst? I don't know if you have both examples, but if you have any.
Oh gosh, so many stories. I am sorry, John. I think I'm going to have to think about it a little bit and get back to you on that. Best pitch. Let me see if I can do it maybe more broadly. Best pitches I've received have been stories that are generally immediate. Generally, there's some sort of news peg to it. Are impactful and have something to do with what's going on in the current environment. Most of the stories that are just out of left field, I would love. I'm sort of a religious scholar, and I would love to do stories about beliefs and faith and, you know, atheism. And I can't do most of those stories because that's just not what we're doing day to day. So I could get pitches about something I'm interested in all day long, but if it doesn't relate to what's happening today, then it doesn't matter. Now, if somebody did a study and they said, oh, COVID is creating a new crisis of faith, or it actually is bringing a lot of people apparently back to churches, those are some stories that I could do something with. If you have a topic that is something that's topical, a speaker that's already lined up and has credentials and has, you know, something to say and is media savvy, always is great. Worst pitches, I don't know, the ones that just seem like they're going out to everybody and it doesn't really have any bearing on my life.
Is it helpful for broadcast for someone to pitch you and say, we have great visuals, or there's this interactive opportunity, or not necessarily with a show, but like how important is that in broadcast? Absolutely. That's great. If there are great visuals that we can gather, or if you're going to come on the show and show me something. We had a guest on recently who is adjusting scuba masks so that they can be personal protective equipment. And so that sort of show and tell is always terrific, something you can't do in any other medium than the visual. So absolutely, that's helpful. All right, we're close to time, but I want to ask two more questions. This one comes from Aaron. With the busy news cycle and disruption to our normal work and personal lives, what are some of the tips you have for taking care of yourself? Yeah. As much as possible, separate your news life, your work life from your personal life. It's not always going to happen. It's really hard when you're working from home. But you know, I had a ritual when I was at KTVU. When I was at KTVU, I covered a lot of tough stories. There was a lot of, you know, knocking on doors shortly after someone had died. There were a lot of court cases, there were fires, there were a lot of very hard stories that I had to cover. And I lived in San Francisco at the time, and I would drive across the Bay Bridge and I would pretend I was taking all of my news work and just throwing it in the bay so I could go home and just be me, because it becomes very heavy to carry. Yeah. So I think wherever you can find some rituals, some ways to separate your professional life and your personal life, it's helpful. At least I've found it helpful. And the last question is kind of fun. Out of all of the movies and television shows that show the behind the scenes of broadcasts, What is your favorite and why?
Newsroom, the show on HBO.
Yes.
It's excellent, and I felt like they really did a good job of making it like a real newsroom. I mean, of course, the stakes are very big and very high, and it's not like that every day. But you know, there are too many TV news shows out there where they show you like somebody running up and they've got a camera and they're suddenly going live, but they're not attached to anything, and there's no newsman, and you know, that would always just kind of irk me. But Newsroom on HBO is an excellent show, and I highly recommend it.
I agree with you on that one. I also have a fondness for broadcast news with Flop Sweat. You want to see what Flop Sweat? Something that you should prepare your executives for when they come into interview. But thank you so much for this. This has been really educational and insightful. Yes?
If I could make a request, if anyone is interested in providing, media training services, perhaps, pro bono media training services, please let me know. Sometimes guests come on. I'd love to be able to point them in a direction. And if you have pitches, please do send them to me, because I'm looking for stories all the time.
Are you active on social? Should we follow you somewhere?
Priya D. Clemens on the platforms. So Priya D. Clemens, and that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Well, thank you so much for this great conversation, and I'm going to hand it back to Kathleen, who will talk about our scholarships. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Priya and Sarah, so much for that. That was amazing. And thank you to everyone for participating in your questions. As many of you know, our Valentine's Day lunch with its silent and live auctions is our major fundraiser for the Roundtable Scholarship Program. We had a really fun and successful event this year and made enough money to be able to award scholarships in the amount of $1,600 each to 5 college and graduate students. In addition, events like today's help raise funds, and I'd like to thank those of you who donated. Today, we've raised a little over $400 for future scholarships. And that includes a really generous donation from our speaker, Priya David Clemens. Thank you, Priya, and everyone. Our scholarship recipients are Bay Area graduate and undergrad college students who are studying public relations and related communications fields. We received more than 24 applicants from colleges and universities as far north as UC Davis and as far south as San Jose State. Winners are selected by a committee, the PR Roundtable Scholarship Committee. We conduct interviews of finalists after reviewing applications, professor recommendations, and writing samples. Those members are here today with us. They are Jerry Corbett, Brenda Kahn, Paul Rose, and me. So thank you all so much. And now I'm happy to name our 2020 Philip and McCombs Scholarship recipients. I will introduce each of the scholarship recipients, and they will each tell you their name and possibly how to pronounce it, their school and major, and a little bit about their personal story. And if they're advisors on the call, they can let us know that as well. But I'm very happy to announce first, we have Sherlanita Erickson from Golden Gate University. Let me unmute her. Hi, Cher, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Sherlanita Erickson. I usually go by Cher, and I am from Indonesia. I am a full-time international student at Golden Gate University, and I'm in my last term finishing my graduate program in Business Administration and Marketing. I am fairly new to this field as my previous background is in interior design, and so I'm very humbled and honored to be awarded as one of the scholarship recipients. I'm also very excited to start my career soon as PR marketing professional. I aspire to be one of you guys, and I cannot wait to do my share and make a positive contribution for the greater good of the community. I would also like to use this opportunity to thank all of the San Francisco Public Relations Roundtable members and committee, especially the scholarship committee, for having me as one of the winners. Thank you so much for all of your generosity and trust, and thank you for this opportunity. And finally, I would like to make a shout out to all of my professors from Golden Gate University. I think we have here with us Professor Baldwin Tarter, and I think Professor Suan. And especially, I would like to thank my advisor, Professor Jay Rooney, who is also here with us today. Thank you so much for all of your support, encouragement, and advices throughout my academic journey. And most importantly, thank you for always believing in me. I guess that's all from me today. Thank you so much for having me, and nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Cher. Our next winner is Arturo Fass from the University of, from USF, University of San Francisco. Hi, Arturo.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about that. I am Arturo Foss. I am a senior at the University of San Francisco. I am a communication studies major and a PR minor. And I'm going to be graduating soon. I'm one presentation away from being done, so pretty excited about that. I am from Eastside San Jose. I am also a first-generation college student and the class of 2020 valedictorian, so I'm pretty happy about that and excited. And I am here virtually with Professor Yvan Duhan. She wrote my letter of recommendation. She is also the head of the communications department at our school. And she's actually the one who let me know about the scholarship. So very thankful for that. And I just would like to thank the SFPR Roundtable and the committee for giving me this opportunity and providing this opportunity for all of us here in the Bay Area. And I'm just so grateful and honored to be one of the recipients. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, Arturo. And next we have Sierra Neen Marcella, also from the University of San Francisco.
Hi everyone, my name is Sierra Neen Marcella, and I'm also from the University of San Francisco. I actually have a couple classes with Arturo. I am a junior, and as of Friday, I will be a senior. And I am so thankful to be given the opportunities by the PR Roundtable for the scholarship. I'm from Huntington Beach, California, moved to the Bay Area, not expecting to have, as a junior, to have something so big, like being honored with an award so big as this. I'm also fairly new to PR. This is my first semester. My advisor is also Professor Duan, and although she can't be here because she's sick, Professor Fei Chen. She was the one who encouraged me actually to apply for this scholarship. I remember telling her, oh, Professor Chen, I'm not sure, like it seems like a really big deal. I don't know if I'll get it. And now here I am, just so honored to be here with everyone and being able to meet so many great people and being able to continue my work as a PR minor and communications major. So thank you again, everyone, and the PR Roundtable. And I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful and so lucky. So thank you.
Thanks so much. And next we have Kayla Rennell from San Jose State University.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm Kayla Rennelli from San Jose State, majoring in public relations and minoring in radio, television, film. At school, I've done a lot with campus radio station, KSJS. I work promotions at Mix 106.5 and 94.5 AFM. And this last semester, the big project I worked on as part of my PR internship at our on-campus agency, I worked with the SJSU Theater to promote their original play, Dreamer Project, an undocu-play about, it's about the real stories of undocumented immigrants at SJSU. So I've really fallen in love with PR, and it's given me a platform to speak for and stand for what I believe in. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm so grateful to the roundtable for giving me this opportunity and for listening and being so welcoming and kind and supportive. I'm sure the others can attest. It's just been so encouraging to speak with you all and hear from you. And it's overwhelming. So thank you so much for that. My professor, Christine DeSalvo, unfortunately couldn't be here today. She's had a family emergency, but I'm also just really thankful to her. She has been so supportive and always believed in me and pushed me to be the best I could be. And I'm so grateful for everything. My parents are also on this call, so I want to thank them. They've always been super encouraging. And even when I was doing our big campaign for the play, I had 1,500 flyers to cut out. They were there. We had family flyer cutout time. So I'm just so grateful for everything. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
Thank you so much, Kayla. I'm really excited your parents are here. I'm glad that they get to see you. And next, but not least, Karina Tran from the University of San Francisco.
Hello, everyone. My name is Karina Tran. I am a second-year communication studies major with a junior standing at the University of San Francisco. I'm from LA County, Gardena specifically, if anybody is from the area or is familiar with the area. My involvement with PR includes the courses that I've taken in PR principles and practices and social media strategies. My specific interests in PR reside in using social media as a tool to create positive change in the world. As a small business owner myself, and as a content creator, I've noticed that social media is often misused. And I want to be part of the movement that ultimately uses it as a medium for change and positivity. I am extremely passionate about the aspect of PR that humanizes every aspect and every individual with the intention to create mutually beneficial relationships. And as often, because it's really, really often to lose sight of each other as human beings. And it's something that I constantly, with every action that I take, that I am constantly trying to make sure that I'm humanizing the person that I'm in contact with. My other academic involvements include my fellowship as an alumna and scholar of the LeGrand Foundation, which is a foundation that aims to increase the amount of ethnic minorities in strategic communications fields. I also have 2 part-time jobs, and I work nearly full-time on top of my full-time course load in order to keep up with the obstacles of pursuing higher education. And lastly, I volunteer as an emerging leadership mentor for a group of 20 first-year students at the University of San Francisco. So I want to express my absolute and humble gratitude to be here today and to be honored with an SFPRRT scholarship as a first-generation student and daughter to a single mother of 3 children. My academic and professional journey has definitely not been easy, but it is because of the support of organizations like SF, the Roundtable, that I have the willpower and the support to keep going and reaching my dreams. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am extremely humbled to be here.
Thank you so much, Karina. So we will be sending each of our 5 winners a $1,600 check. So congratulations to all of you. You really deserve it. And as part of our program, each of you becomes an associate member for a year. So we look forward to you joining us at future events and maybe renewing your membership in 2021 with your new jobs. Thank you and good luck. Molly, back to you.
Wow, this was beyond our expectations. We're really, really pleased. Thank you, all of you. My goodness. Thank you, Shernalita, Arturo, Ciara, Kayla, and Karina. Your little speeches were terrific. You guys are inspiring. You inspire us. So thank you for coming and joining us today. I feel like this has all happened because of you. It's happened because of you anyway, but being able to actually bring you to our guests has been very special for us. So thank you. So PR Roundtable is one of the nation's oldest PR organizations. We're friendly, we do great work, and we would love to have all senior PR professionals as members. So if you aren't yet a member and you are a PR practitioner, please join us. You can visit us at sfprrt.org. And you can click on the membership tab or contact me or Sarah Siegel, and Sarah's at sarah@siegelcommunications.com for more information. Thank you, Priya. I mean, what a wonderful conversation. And thanks for all your questions. I know we probably didn't get to all of them, but we'll continue speaking about all of this in many other forums. We, incidentally, a final note, well, there is one more thing. The winner of our drawing is Eva Ann Doohan. And she is Arturo's advisor, I think. Yeah, so that's great. So she will be receiving a $50 gift certificate. We will email that to her, and she is still here, and she's here today, so she was present to win. A final note, the Roundtable hosts an event every other month during the year featuring local media and PR personalities, like we had today with our wonderful personality, Priya Clemens. So please watch for our notices and please join us at these events. We currently have a spring mixer planned at the Equinox Sports Club on Market Street in San Francisco on Thursday, June 25th. We don't know whether that'll be happening because of what's going on, but we will be monitoring the coronavirus health crisis for news of our next event in late June, whether it's in person or virtual. So we'll let you know. So I hate to end this, but we're ending early, which is always nice. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please let us know what you thought of our event when you get our survey, and stay safe. Thank you.